What's the one thing we have to comprehend that we need to understand of what we have is how to use our imagination. How do we use it? When do we use it? Why do we use it? How do we use it? How do we use it? How do we understand how to use it? Why is it so important to understand? What is this all about? Where does this all happen? Right? Getting into the whys puts you into the how. And I keep saying that over and over and over. And once you understand how to get in positions, how to use the settings, you really have to get into modification. It's about you understanding how to use the body as a vessel, to understand the vessel, to understand the modifications of the vessel, to understand the correlations of the vessel, understand the compute systems of the vessel, the compute line screens of the vessel, the communication interference of the vessel, the mind navigations of its vessel. I just keep going and going and going and going. You know how I do that? Because I identify myself. Because I know who I am. I don't second guess who I am. I don't get correlations of confusion of who I am. I don't separate myself from who I am. I know who I am. I know my capabilities and what I can do, which is limitless, timeless, shapeless, formless, and motionless and senseless. Also space and time, motion, sense, and formless, and calculations and any travels, or anything correlations, direct and redirect locations. But I know who I am. Okay. So you want to understand these things because it's all inside you. Don't you understand how to use what you have, the capabilities and the volume and the bass, and understand how fast your connections are going, how fast your thoughts are, how many thoughts are going in that position, how many are in position of positive, how many in position negative, right? Is it 50-50? Is it 20-30, 60-40, 70-30, 90-10? What is it, right? You have imagination. You have to understand how to use it, which you already do, right? Getting in a position you can't change, that's already an alteration, right? So you can't change the past, present, and future. That's done, right? So get that out of the equations. But what you can do is you can add frames of what your past, present, and your future want it to be. All right. So you're creating a new simulator. You're creating a new simulator and how you want to see the past, the present, and the future. But you can't change of what you are. To identify your system is truly understand how to see things, how you want to perceive things. The basic understanding is to control your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. Now, once you understand how to do that, you're controlling your highways and your spectrum, the inner spectrum, the outer spectrums of inner space and outer space. That points its view alone in calculation system, but you want to know exactly how fast you're going in the mind of acceleration, don't you? Right? How fast your electrical system is going. Okay, how many alpha waves are going? How many delta lines of communications? How much theta lines and applications are there? Omegas, there's gammas, radiation, radioactive system. How many beta waves in your system? That's what you want to identify. You want to identify the speed, the acceleration, the Mach, the interstellar, hyper, in position locations, hyperdrive, hyper mode, self mode, space mode, correlation mode, track modes, identification modes, computer modes, modification settings, travel calculations, point lines of graphs, interference, point center interference, travel communications, point lines of graph interference location of change, direct lines modification. Your system is all of it inside you, and how to use it through your imagination equals lines of correlation, lines of track, lines of phenomena. You change your system into what you want your reality to be. Okay, if you want to be in a 3 dimension, go right. That's your reality. That's where you're living in your duality. I guarantee you, you're going to be in volume of that in frequency. You're going to see low frequency, medium, or high. You determine what you want, but you have to understand how you use your communications, how to control your thoughts, your actions, your emotions. Because if you don't get control with that, you're not going to understand your realities, dualities, and your dichotomies through your systems. Not realizing that you're in a low frequency. You're living in a low frequency. You're becoming a low frequency. You are a low frequency. I am a low frequency because that's what I choose. Okay? You choose what makes you feel comfortable, not what makes you feel sad. So Happy or sad, either way, there's two lines of communications, smiles and cries. They cannot take that away from you, right? When it rains, it shines, okay? So how you determine yourself from inside is how everything is outside, okay? Whatever you do from inside determines what happens outside, okay? You change yourself inside, changes everything outside, right? It's the inner spectrum and the outer spectrum of space, okay? All right, no Q&A today, guys. I've got interviews to do and travels and plant lines of grass. I got to get ready for Cancun. I got to get position lines of post and track position location settings. Going to set up line condition settings all levels, video lines, and I got to do Space Discoveries Season 4, Episode 1. So Friday we do have the test. You guys already know what it is in track calculation system. So there is a Q&A on that settings. All right, so it would be in Commander 6, and line travels, line condition settings, star portals, and line position locations of Hangar 5. All right, so direct lines of communication system. So we're going to talk about more lines because it goes more into communication setting to understand how to formulate and communicate. Why I talk so fast is because I'm traveling very fast, but I know exactly what I'm doing as I'm traveling very fast because I know exactly what I'm seeing. Okay, when you're driving, you know what you're seeing, right? Well, it's no difference when you're doing it in the mind. Right? You just have to understand it's in the mind. Okay, so when you touch things, you have to understand it's direct line signal that's giving you instructions, how to see things and how to see the formation of its intelligence that's giving you intel, that's giving you information, that's giving you code, that's giving you prior, that's giving you schematics, that's giving you binary, that's giving its algorithm to you in your vessels, pods, and vehicles a set design. Okay, you're here to identify you, not to identify anybody else. Okay, not to understand anything in set locations except yourself. Coming back into the true natures of you. Okay? All right, modification lines of sight, lines, high center, case and travels, point lines of graph. So we're just going to get a line communication setting, talk about more lines of calculations, how to use the mind itself. Not the mind you're in. The mind itself is the operation of itself. So what that means is it's mind over matter. What mind doesn't matter. So it's line position locations that it can morph into anything calculation system, but it does everything by itself. It doesn't need to recognize its system. It's its own setting, which is extremely powerful, right? Same with communication lines when you communicate with the brain. The basic ground lines, understand the hardware and software, understanding the waves. Okay, 3 lines of communication of waves, right? 3 waves, right? But there's 5 interactions. Okay, how you see them in line position location settings. Then we got a signature line screen coming in. Oh my gosh, what's going on? It's affecting your wires. It's affecting the line communication of its pathogens and its quality location of its highway. See, that's not supposed to be there, right? So understanding track lines of communication setting, all levels of operation surface. You take it on position locations, you work into the confirmation lines, you communicate to its system through its intelligence. Over cross-line signals, double screen lines adaptations, position lines of wires, line communications, all levels, location setting to travels. 3 lines indicate position lines of power during communication setting, programs communication through its system. 3 lines of communication, inner and out and audio, right? Now it's got a confirmation line, right? So the actual green blends into all lines of formation setting. So we go with the green lines of center, 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 and the 5 track locations. Now it's in balance, right? So it's like, I want to have fun. I want to join in. You know, what's this all about? I heard about this. I heard about that. So you're in a group within a group of a group. So it's like you're going on an audition and you're around these groups, right? There's groups even in schools, right? So you just walk in and you walk. What did I just walk into? I like to join. What's this all about, right? So you go from ear to ear, right? You get a confirmation line cycles and you feel outwitted, you know, outgained. So it's about understanding that, okay, what's this all about, right? How do I get into comfortability? How do I get into balance? How do I get into volume? How do I get into VAS? How do I get into what I want to connect with in position locations so I feel comfortable with the group that I'm in, right? So, you know, it's what you're good at, what you're standing, what you're good at, what you know, what you're good at is everything of volume, vast. So more levels of you see yourself in your vessel, of your position to your pod and your vehicles and calculation setting. It's all lines of communications, all right? So the mind itself, basic ground line. So we already know this is a one-line center locations in travel. Point lines, graph calculation lines, has 2 panels, correlation, strength, interference, a 3-line communication, standard platform communication. Imagine that. It's all through one, right? So we all have to get out of what? Get into our imagination. Ego's lines phenomenon. Okay, that initials lines of intel location set through its program, right? Sets lines of communication lines on one line screen, adaptation lines of surface, correlate to track interference, and position of its program. All right. So the actual one is constantly changing the seconds, minutes, and hours of its setting. This is what the mind do. The mind itself doesn't stay in a frequency. It evolves itself in all frequencies all at once. So it's a constantly ongoing on a 24 cycle, 48 platform, 72 computer frame, 144 crystal grid. Okay. Its position lines of settings into 1, 2, 3, and 4 set locations to its initial of its program, a magnetic highway of information, all through one. Right? That's what one did. That's the mind. So it comes into mind equals matter. 2 panels on both sides, right? Space and time, right? So it's all about understanding this is the structure from here to here, right? Okay, so this is what it is in location. This is the model. Okay. This is the GOD that's set up, right? Okay, that's the GOD, right? You are GOD. So if you look at yourself from here to here, that is your inner spectrum, okay? The outer spectrum, okay, is the space, okay? Now, the centric correlation and position location space itself is coming to you, okay? It's coming to you through attraction. So things come to you through attraction, but you have to understand how to identify your body, how to identify the vessel, how to identify the navigation system, understanding the console, understanding the information settings, understand that everything is coming to you through attractions. It's what you attract. When you say things, it's coming to you through attractions. So if you're in a 5th dimension and that's where you want to be through intent, that's where you're going to be, and everything around you is going to already change in the simulator. So you got a simulator graph and settings. For example, I'll give you an example case setting a trial point lines of graph. This is what happens when you come into all levels to observation. All right, so this is you in position, film strip of you, right? All right, so set correlation lines Monday locations, right? Doesn't exist, right? So you can allow Monday to exist, but in the space line, it doesn't exist. See, this is what you've got to get communications of. This is your Earth, okay? But the powers, lines, and communications setting is your avatar. The space modulation is its atmospheres and its magnetic highway information, okay? So setting position lines on Monday. Okay, that's Monday, right? Graph calculation, 1 graph setting, okay? In positional process calculation, right? So we got film strip at 1. Okay, that's Monday. All right, so Monday line communication setting, frequencies are at box lines of frequency setting, the 3 tractions. Okay. All right, so we got data formation lines of 2 into 3 in position of 4 setting locations. All right. So in that calculation line connections, the mind changes the programs in position of center and all levels of correlation. We have travel. Sets communication line, direct signals, and solar sail. Okay. So you're at that frequency right now in its integration. Right? There's a solar sail, right? Modificates the sun and modificates the moon in line position of its program and calculation of projection. All right. So you're staying in that frequency in a 24 line cycle, right? So there's 24 hours in the line screen, right? So is there 24 hours? It's up to you, because your avatar can be in 24 cycles, or it can be 24 measures or 24 scales. It can be whatever it wants to be. That's the mind itself. You don't have to title and label everything and see everything what it is. You are in your own communication setting to understand how to create your co-creations, what you all created in position location system. You are your own realities of what you want it to be, not what you see. Very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. So if I want to turn that tree lines and correlation lines of satellite, reposition its bridging, it puts it in location setting, add a line calculation lines of a tether, there is an intrapplication done through that setting, right? I see the tree and information that changed its setting because I already have a partnership with everything that I see because I'm my reality. not what it is. It's my simulator, my simulation. How you set these things up is how you determine how you set these things up, and you set it up through frequencies, right? So that puts you in all communication setting how you see yourself, right? On your day-to-day process of your day-to-day routines. So if you want to see yourself in a 7-day, that's set up for 7 days. You want to see yourself in 3 days, that's set up for 3 days. But don't confuse the mind. Don't confuse the travels. Don't confuse the navigation. Okay? That's all you have to understand. Okay? That's all through Monday, right? It's amazing, right? Look at the teleportation. Okay? All right. So that's just the basic grounds, just in the mind itself, guys, where it comes in all lines of communications. But you got to control your thoughts and your actions and your emotions, right? Thoughts are communication lines and position of actions, and liken this study to motion to the emotion, right? So you got emotion. So equal lines, correlation lines of patterns of behavior. Motion is motionless. Sense is senseless. So you determine how you want to be in your realities that changes everything to your dualities, to your dichotomies of your polarities, your position, your paradigms, your polar shifts, your paradox, and your pulsars and communications on conversion, and positions how you want to live your setting and calculations to your sim through modification, right? Through the seconds, minutes, and hours that changes everything information. Everything is changed. The frequencies change, the energies change. If you go to low frequency, you're back in your vessel. You're not in your pod. You're not in your sim, right? You're not in your vehicle because you're not understanding how to control your thoughts and how many thoughts are in position location of positive and negative. You can't have a 50-50 here. This is not 50 light web and 50 dark web. No. Okay. It's about understanding how to use your imagination and how to use it through intent and how to attract what you already have, not what you're coming into. It's something you already know, right? All right. So that puts you in position lines of balance. All right. So let's say it's Tuesday. And again, you're in a film strip. Okay. Split lines of 2, right? So Tuesday lines. So you're in Tuesday. You're not in Wednesday. You're not in Thursday. You're just on Tuesday, right? So you focus on the seconds, minutes, and the hours. Break it down. Graph, 3 graphs, right? So let's go on seconds line. Sets position locations, 150,000 line memory. Calculation lines in bracket communications, or point lines of graph. Center core system and box triangulation. Okay, all through seconds, right? So that puts you in line position locations, 150 altogether, right? So that puts lines of 75,000 lines of positive and 75,000 lines of negative. Now, that's a 50 line screen, split lines of 50% location, 50-50, right? So you can't have a light web and a dark web at the same correlation settings of balance. That's not yin and yang, people. Your binary is understanding position of singularity. Singularity is like, what are you using? 1/8 of a frame, 1/6 of a frame, 1/7 of a frame, 1/10 of a frame, 1/12, 1/24 of a frame. That is position of dark web that you use. You use that through foundations of your graph calculated lines, so location of your chakras, guys. You start with the 0 lines, 0 point lines and 1 point line, decimal point in one frame. Whatever you want to do in position, you can't do 50-50. It's not yin and yang. This is understanding how to balance out your binaries and your singularities of your arguments and balancing out your traffic of your inventories of your flow in position locations and how to control your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions and set calculations. All through your webbing system. All through your webbing system of seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay? So, get you better understand how to work that through in this equation, right? Using your intent, using your observation, using your influence and manipulation, right? Use your imagination. Get creative. You're creative in position of what? Fibonacci. Boom. Creative cycle. Okay? How to use the Fibonacci in 6 and 9. Flux communication ground lines, how process lines, ground lines, time height, appearance of 3-line rotation, surface travels, point lines, graph communication, high standard location setting, Merkabah to location setting, trial point lines, graph communication, done. off the Fibonacci, right? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, guys. So that's what you have to understand. That's why you have a chakra system. The chakra system is to understand how to use the 0 in 12 set locations. 0 lines of communications, right? 1 equals lines of highest interference. Let's go 1/5 of a frame, okay? 1/5 of a frame. So 1/5 of the frame, okay, correlates to settings, okay? Then you put position lines that correlates and track. So that's frame equals lines of dark web. Okay, 1/5 of the frame. That's all you're going to use, right? So that puts position lines, attractions, and settings. So it's really interesting when you come into that correlation, right? So I'm trying to get you guys to understand these things, all right? So 1/5 of the frame, okay, is dark web. Okay. So to understand, what do you want to use through light web? You start with the light web, which is the inner cycle. You don't start with the outer cycle. You don't start with space. You start with the inner system. You don't start with the outer system. You start with the inner spectrum. You don't start with the outer spectrum. You understand that? Inner space, outer space. Inner orbits, outer orbits. You don't start with your thoughts of outer. You start with your thoughts with inner. Okay? It's very powerful what you guys are coming into, and I'm trying to get you to understand how to use the mind of correlation lines attractions, because if you don't, look what happens to the one cycle. It changes communication, travel. All right, so direct lines of calculation setting. So that position lines of 1 equals lines of one frame communication settings into 0 gravity. Okay. So that puts lines in dark web. Remember, it's changing the seconds, minutes, and hours, right? You've got to get in configuration. You've got to get in volume. You got to get inventory. You got to get binary. You have to get in transistors, resistors into your light switches. Your light switches, all right, are capacity of capsules. Those are your thoughts that are created through its program location setting that puts position of electrons and protons in your position, location, and infusion. You're infusing in position to its program, all through modification, right? So get in that position lines attractions. How much light web do you need to use to balance out the dark web to its thought, to its action, to its emotion? Okay? That's all it is, all right? All right, so we're getting a little bit more understanding there, so that's good through attractions. So getting direct line signals, and this is all done through the mind itself, because you're starting to see yourself, knowing yourself, becoming yourself. You are yourself. I am myself. I just don't see myself as a computer. I am a computer, because I understand the technologies of me, because the technology has already been said and done. This is the technology that puts you in more lines of the future line communications when you come into 2030, a set design, right? So 2030 on the Earth, 2,300,000 years in the future line connection. That's 2,300,000 years, light years away. 2030 on Earth. So you got to balance the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres to set location. Okay? And again, in position, you go through seconds, minutes, and hours. Let's say you don't want the hours. You don't want the hours. Okay? Let's say you just want the seconds. So you can live in a 24 cycle just on seconds alone. Who says you need the minutes? Who says you need the hours? You got to get out. That is a title. That is a label. That is a program. To understand your space is to understand your time. Yes. But to understand your time is to understand your timeless and your shapeless. Spaceless, timeless. I told you guys that before, right? So once you understand that, then you have to understand your binaries, right? Your singularities. Okay. Let's go in business location, your system through inventory. Okay, your program settings, your algorithms. Let's just start with the 3 zeros and tractions. Okay, 3 zeros and tractions. Platforms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 locations, right? Now, if you look at the graph line communication, there's something that's off the calculation. What do you see in position that's on position off line center interference of its thought that's not supposed to be there? What is not supposed to be there? What is not in sequence? Look at the graph lines. 3 line cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're still in the same platform, right? Here. Okay. See correlation lines attractions? Right there. Boom. See? That's not supposed to be there, right? So that position lines it's over cross location settings and travels. Okay. Setting position line, one's missing. It's up there. All right. So you take the track lines, that's over cross locations in the dark web. All right. That overlines the signal location, it's binary. That relines its communication lines with singularity. Back into line conditions at 1/5 of a frame. Back in correlation lines in positive, line conditions negative, and position locations of 150,000 line circuits in direct case in the line calculation setting and travels in point lines of graph communication. Okay. That's all through zeros now. That's detail. That's identification. What's in order and what's not in chronological order, right? So this is dark web, starting with dark web, not the inner web, not the inner light. This is the dark light, guys. This is the dark web. So pay attention when you're in your inventories of your binaries, of transistors, resist location, your system, of your patterns behavior. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. Setting communication line is very powerful stuff because the mind itself knows exactly what it is because it's already done through its equation of its past, present, and future. Right? You cannot change that. And I repeat, you cannot change something that's already in modification in your settings. The alteration of your travels is done. All right? All you're coming into is muscle memory. Mind over matter. Muscle memory. Mind over matter. All right. Now, getting communication lines to screens, once you understand the 1/5 or 1/10 or one line settings, you have to understand the foundation line condition setting to your DNA. This is where it comes into an immortal stat. That position lines to its access and communication setting, how to intercept or correlation setting to interline communication to inception, how to really understand the volume, the mass, the velocity, the vacuum, and how to use an acceleration and mocking in any way and form and position. You should know exactly what you're doing with your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions when you're traveling, slowing down the space. Okay? So you have two perfect line cycles, slowing down your space, slowing down their space, the intelligence of its space. Okay? So you have to have a direct and redirect signals, right? Because they're also setting up their spectrum of inner light and outer light of spectrum setting. They're creating the lines of communication lines and then the creative cycles. They're in their imagination. They're in their phenomenon. They already know what they're doing because it's already done, guys. It's already done. You just have to identify your muscle memory of you of mind over matter. But mind doesn't matter, right? If we got 13 lines equals lines in one frame, okay, let's put that track locations in one frame setting and travel. Okay, let's go through correlations of travel, point lines, and graphs. Very complicated stuff, right? So I'm putting 13 lines of volume, top location. Okay, 13 lines of volume, right? That's on standby, right? Vast velocity. Now I'm telling you exactly what I want to do because I'm using detail. You have to be specific of what you want in detail, how to use your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions, and what you're doing through patterns behavior. Because if you're going this way in travel, in point lines of graph communications, if you're going this way, right, you have to understand how to go this way. Okay, there's two ways in tractions, right? You can't just go one way, you got to go both ways. So it's the direct and redirect, direct and redirect, direct and redirect. That's all you're doing, going faster, faster, faster. So the more you come together, the more you come together, the more you come together, the more you come back together, right? Like this subparticle. It doesn't matter where the subparticle goes in position location, if it's splitting lines of anomalies, they all have to come back in positions back to center of operation. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, so that's what your thoughts do. All right, stay in the observation mode, put you in lines of frequency and line communication setting, get it into that process first, not into intent, not in influence, and not in manipulation, right? Because it all volumes in one cycle. You can't separate that. It all stays together in process of communication that puts your lines in film strips and how you see things do determination. That puts everything in integration location setting to your interface. How you connect with your thoughts is how you control your actions of your emotions. Okay? So it's very important to understand how to use a hardware and software of a computer that's inside your system. Okay, all through binary and singularity. Singularity to 1. That's singularity, right? Okay. Singularity equals lines in one line, line position, one pattern. Okay. One pattern, right? Equals lines of motion. Okay. Now, you got one line signal, equals lines, correlation lines, and 2 track location of 0, 0, 0. That's a binary. Yeah, singularity, binary. Singularity, binary. 2 patterns, 4 patterns, 6 patterns, doesn't matter. But you have to understand the correlation setting when it comes into that position of travel. Points, lines of graph communicates the system. Setting lines of 3 lines of communication. Process calculation lines of ground lines, high operation lines, circles, and travel. Okay. Ground centers, power line rotation surface, and line condition setting in position of its program. All right. So singularity, binary. All right. So you can add a singularity line screen and line communication setting. So singularity is the 1/5 of frame. All right. Singularity. 1 equals 1/5. Okay. Of a frame. It gets very complicated stuff when you get into space lines of communications. Process calculation lines is putting position lines of power. Okay. Singularity, 1 equals lines of 1. 1/5 of a frame. Okay. 1/5 of a frame. All right. So that position lines of cycles in 1 generation screen line. That puts lines of communication in dark web. Okay. Dark web equals dx. Okay. So it's division, okay, of x box. Okay, x box, all right? 4 cycles of 3 cycles, split lines of anomaly. That's 43 tractions, indirect multiplication of 7 over 12 into 24 line cycles, 24 grounds, powers, and atmosphere line screens, and atmospheres and magnetic highway information. Right? Now, that's all through dark web. Now, you should already know what you've done through the inner lights, the inner spectrum, the inner line connection setting, the inner program, the outer program. You have an in and out in audio now. You have to learn how to use the grounds, how to use the powers and the atmospheres, how you connect with your thoughts, your connections of your actions, and your emotions. This processes you to higher level setting, how to use it through information. Okay? So I'm giving the team step by step what you need to understand, how you go through 1/5 of a frame, or 1 equals lines of 1/5 of a frame, all through singularity, right? Singularity, singularity, right? Position locations and setting, process calculations, all right? So once you understand that, then you understand the transistors and the resistors. Transistors, resistors. Transistors going up, resistors coming in. Transist, resist, transist, resist. There's a communication line interference of transformation, information, intel, correlation lines of tracking of data, intel, line condition, all levels of confirmation. So getting into that position location, you understand transmitting and receiving. Transmitting and receiving. Transmitter, receiver, resistor. Okay? So you're coming into resistance. Transmitting, receiving, transmitter, resistor. Okay? The resistor is the receiving. Okay? So how you are in resistance is position, location to your settings, and how you come into all levels, how you interline communications of inner web, light web, and inner line communication setting of programs in positions of dark web in track location. Okay? Very complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun once you start to recognize you through your CPU, your compute system, your programs, of your units, of your cores, of track locations, of your setting. Okay? And this is all through the mind. Okay? Very complicated, but it gets a lot more fun once you understand the singularities and the binaries, how it comes together through the transistors and its resistors. Okay? That's all you need to point out. Okay? Because your vessel, your pod, and your vehicle is nothing but reaction of response. Okay? Reaction or response of its resistance. Are you resisting or are you not resisting? Okay? Resisting puts you back further in the game. Okay? Getting position locations calculations, understanding resistance is very high information lines of frequency. Getting out of the resistance, you're good to go, right? You're not resistance. If you're resisting, you're going back in frame. You're not volleying yourself going forward in frame, right? Frame communication lines of box line, data formation lines, graph communications, and settings and travel. Okay. Sets communication lines of data formation lines of 1, and position lines of 2, and position lines of 3. Okay. Process communication lines of 1, 2, and 3 platforms. Very complicated stuff, right? Then we come into all levels high correlation lines of calculation. Then we come into positional platforms 1, 2, and 3, and 4 track lines of center of communication. Right? Direct calculated lines of the grounds and position of the atmospheres. All lines of box line, anything through all lines of shapes has grounds, powers, and atmospheres, guys. So you have to understand that. It also has identification system and all lines of travels in its own earth of travel position, location of transition and calculation. Okay? Ground center lines of platforms 1, crop circles, crop circles, crop circles, line communication of the program. Direct modification lines of platforms, line screen, high center interference, high levels of volume in platforms communication setting to correlation. Okay. Process communication lines of ground center location is power generation line screens adaptation. Process communication of ground lines, high set location is operation lines of circuit set location. Okay. All right. So let's go into box frames. Okay. Platforms of boxes now. I'm going to turn them into boxes. Okay. Data files. Those are data files now, right, off the platforms. All right, so platforms in 1, going cross lines, screen lines, and 3 lines of communication. All right, so the data file 1 and data file 2 and track location. Complicated stuff, right? All right, sending ground lines, XD1000 comes in traction, right? Direct line signals, has to go through line condition setting in travel, points, lines, graph communications, right? Plat division, cross line screens, in line communication, position of program, all right? Direct lines, communication lines, high center location system, all levels of calculations. Comes into 2 line screens and direct signals. See the 2? All right. Correlate high interference is another 2 correlation lines of data files and correlation lines of track location. All right. Process communication lines, another XC1000 comes in setting. Sets communication lines of ground line communication, any docking its system and travel. Okay. So platforms communication line comes into astral projections of travel correlation. Okay. Direct lines of modifications, all through standard calculation. Very complicated stuff, right? Okay. This is all done through your thoughts. All through your thoughts. Okay. So what I showed you here is known exactly line signals, the direct and redirect line communication, your binaries and transition and resistors, right? Transisting, resisting, right? Transisting, okay? Resisting, okay? So it's a transmission of receiving. Receiving equals lines of resisting. Are you resisting or non-resisting? So that puts your line position program, your data files, correlation lines, attractions. Put you automatically in a pattern behavior. Right away, as soon as you use the 1/5 of a frame or 1/8 of a frame or 1/10 or 1/12 or 1/24 of a frame. All right. But you need a positive of negative. You start with the inner light. It absorbs the dark light, right? Understanding the light shades and shadows of the sun and the moon, right? That has its own binary, that has its own transistor and its resistor of its traffic, of its flow, of its inventory, of its algorithm that's in position location, how it sees it through its pixelation graphs or anything through its correlation of its hologram. Okay? Very, very complicated stuff. Okay? And that's all through the mind itself. So muscle memory is mind over matter. And that's what you are in now. The muscle memory of what the mind doesn't matter. Okay? That's resistance. The highest formation of frequency has no resistance of anything. It's a high formation where nothing gets in position of bother because you don't allow yourself to be bothered. You don't allow yourself to operate your system in travels until you understand the operation of its travel. Okay? To understand travel is to understand you through travel. Just because you understand travel doesn't mean you are understanding travel of you. Okay? So getting that ground sentence high upper lines of surface set locations. Let's go through 1 point line. Let's get into decimal point lines of 0, point lines of 1. Okay. So it's you using what works for you. You are your own programmers of programming. You are basically putting your thoughts, your connections to your actions and your emotion, and you're creating a program through that, through a 3 central setting. Okay. The center core of you, the modifications of you, the center core line connections and graphs of you, and position of the inner light and the outer light. Inner light, outer light. Okay? The inner light is the spectrum. The outer light is the space spectrum. So you have to understand there's 2 lines of communication and 3 lines of correlation setting. That's 5-line communication in heart. It tracks the system, calculates lines, how you use the frames and correlation lines of directions, how to use it through the binaries of seconds, minutes, and hours. Puts you in singularities into binaries of communication. Okay, binary, singularity. Okay, so set position lines of singularity, line condition setting. So you start with lines, the inner line. So position lines attractions. Okay, so you always have to use more light than dark to balance out your hardware and software. All right, but you always start with the inner spectrum of you, not the outer spectrum of you, because it confuses anomalies of the inner spectrum and the outer spectrum of you of space and time. Okay, so I'm trying to get you guys to understand that so you can control your thoughts and your actions and your emotions, how you speak, because it changes everything of graph. It changes everything through zeros and ones. It changes everything through pixels. It changes everything through your hologram of your simulators, of your simulation, of the VR system. Okay, of seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay, now you determine what you want it to be. And again, it doesn't have to be seconds, minutes, and hours. It can just be the hours. It doesn't have to be seconds, just be the minutes, or it can be seconds, minutes, hours, or just the hours itself. You determine what that is. But again, you have to understand the inner spectrum and the outer spectrum of you, because you have to understand the volume, the mass, the velocity, and the vacuum, and what you're doing in acceleration and Mach. Okay, because your thoughts are traveling very fast. Okay, and they're never ever at the same volume of acceleration. Okay, but they're all connected to each other, going in the same directions, different locations. Okay, that's opening up the sequencing lines, the communication lines that access the doors that you come into, right? It's like a clothesline that's coming back to you. So what you're doing is you're wheeling things in, right? You're getting muscle memory. So the more muscle memory comes to you, the more muscle memory comes to you in future line. So it just goes in. So it's trying to understand. It's trying to understand the yin and yang, process communication. Nope. Got to get back information. Get into that cycle, get into that system, get into correlations, get into circuitry, get into the singularities, get into the binaries, get into the force, get into direction, get into space, get into time, right? Get in positional locations. Nothing shows you everything, right? Process communication, do, right? Then you're going this way, 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 going this way. Then you go this way, all the way, going forward. Okay, you're no longer going back because you're not resisting of what you're receiving, okay, of transmitting and receiving. Okay, transistors over resistors. Now you understand that. All right, so I really want you to point these things out, because that's why you're here, is to understand you and all formations of coming into your muscle memory of you. Mind over matter. Okay, that's it, nothing else. All right, now I'm just showing you exactly how you go into that position lines of attractions. Now, direct lines of signals. Let's say you got line send locations into settings. Now, the line communication, let's get into provocations to its inner light, inner web, light web. Okay, you start with the inner spectrum, and let's just simple line its communication setting, right? All right, so you set 1 lines of 80 volume. Okay, 1 lines of 80 volume. Okay, calculation line is location setting. Let's add line setting to 70%. 70%. Okay. into lines of 2 frames and tractions, right? 2 frames and tractions, right? That's the light web. That's the convulsion. That's the conversion. That's the formula. That's the equation. That's the light web, right? So you're putting 70%, which means you have to put 10%, okay, or less through your dark web. Because it's an overcross screen. If you go line communications over 24 frames per line, it position lines of traffication setting to its operation surface. Okay, that's light web. Okay, cross line screens, 1/8 lines, 1 0 line rotations into levels of volume. Cross locations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7, right? So now you got the space. This is space. Hello. Say hi to space. This is the line settings of you. Okay. One singularity. Okay. So correlates lines, the highest end, calculates lines. 180 volume, line rotation cycles. 1 singularity, 180, 1 volume, 1 position locations, 70%. Equals lines that correlates lines of 2 frames, right? That's the line can be set in inner spectrum, right? See the graph? See that? This is space now. All right, so this is a correlation lines of dark web. Okay, so you got the inner spectrum correlations in settings into all position lines, positive, right? The negative is the space, positive is you, right? So twining that together through an interception is truly understand how much you want to put in dark web. So you got to correlate the setting, correlation setting. So if it's 70%, how do you get to 100%? How do you get to 100%? 30, right? Right? Because it's at 180 volume, right? So I know it's complicated stuff, but I'm trying to get you to understand how powerful it is to use the mind itself that does everything by itself. But it's very powerful when you understand the formulas equation through an inner line calculation setting to inner width and position of inner spectrum calculation lines of inner light calculation setting to its operation system of light web. Now you connected to dark web. This is creating your thoughts. This is creating your program and how you speak to yourself and through each other through seconds, minutes, and hours. That determines what happens next through transmitting and receiving. Transistors over resistors. Okay? All right. So in that position lines, dark web lines, 30%. Okay, 30% line condition setting into all levels into 7 frames. Right? That's the balanced position location of 7. 70%, right? Which is 30. So that correlation setting is 100% line condition. There it is. Boom. All through one communication setting in position of process of one thought. Hoo-ah! So this is locations and settings. That's 1 settings equals lines of 1/10 of a frame of 30%. Okay, that's how it comes into the equilibrium. 100% of light and dark web of one thought in provision going forward in tractions. Hooah! Technology at its best. Okay. So powerful stuff, isn't it? Way beyond the system locations of what you can do through your computers and your binaries, your transistors, and your resistors to your algorithms of your traffic and your flow. You've got to get control of that setting. All right. So there you go. 1/10 of a frame lines of 30% location setting and travels puts lines of 7. Okay. That's the equilibrium of 100% location of light and dark web through one thought. Right? So in position lines of correlation setting, the lights and the dark, okay, come together through one capsule in one setting and one travel. Okay? So the positive and the negative go in the same direction of space, of in and outer light. They go in the same direction because it's at 100% all the time. So that puts position line of travels. Once it correlates to that calculation system in travel point lines of graphs, you come into all of your structures, your images, and your schematics through your primer. in position lines of correlation, setting, and track communication. Okay? So that's what it is in travel. Point lines of graph. Okay? I know it's very powerful. Listen to what we just finished doing. It's so incredible when you start to understand it, how it's all done. Through your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions, how to set up your light web and your dark web. Through your frames. Okay? You determine what is good for you. Okay? Knowing exactly how your thoughts come to you is knowing exactly what happens through integration. Okay? Everything has consequences. Nothing has coincidence. So it's determined what you do is what you do with your settings, what puts you in your decisions and the choices that you make. How to connect to your light web and how to connect with your dark web. Inner space, outer space, people. Okay? All done through equation. Okay? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But it's difficult, right? It's extremely difficult, isn't it? But it's extremely easy, guys. Because you're building a partnership with yourself. You're building a partnership with everything inside yourself. You're understanding the why. You're understanding the how. You're understanding the what. You're understanding the where. Okay? Yes, it's very powerful, isn't it, Roots? You're going to have to watch this video again and again and again and again and again. Oh, so that's what you're reaching is 100% all the time through your thoughts of seconds, minutes, and hours, right? Because you've been going between lines of, it all depends on your pattern behavior. You can't get rid of your pattern behavior emotion because it's always there. You just don't travel through the emotion. As soon as you travel through emotion, it takes 100% away. It takes 100% away. Okay? Because now you're dealing with 96. Now you're dealing with 86. Now you're dealing with 75. Now you're dealing with 61. Now you're dealing with 45. Okay? So, see why you don't want to get into pattern behavior? Have the pattern behavior emotion, but don't use it through its equation of a formula. Okay? Because you come into levels of what? What happens in your system when your thoughts are not doing a triplication of balance? You're coming into a question, right? Oh no! How did I go from 100% to 20%? No. So cross-line connections, that's an overdraft. It's an overdraft. Banking system, which is what? Minus. So you're at minus 20. You got to go back to 0. Go back in position. Confirmation from a dog. Way beyond, people. Way beyond. All right? Boom. I blew your minds away. And that's how the mind works. Hooah. Okay? I think we'll stop there. You guys have a real lot of connection settings trying to understand what's going on, right? How your mind is all set up. All through calculation setting in position of light and dark web and how it all comes together in setting position of operation, 100% location of travel of space and time. Okay? Everybody happy with that now? A little bit more understanding how important it is. Okay? You never ever travel through emotion because it affects your time settings. And you come always in lines of communications of what? Question. You start questioning your identity. You start separating your identity. You get confused and separated and frustrated and confused and depressed and angry and fear. Okay? Boom. Okay? That's the mind. All right? We will stop there. Right? Just giving you guys a basic example. That is basic. Basic for general. Basic, basic, basic. Okay? You have to get into basics. Okay? You guys don't want to understand A, B's, and C's. You want to go already to Z. You want the whole cake, not the pieces of the cake. Right? You don't want to go to A, B, and C. Okay? You want to go all the way to Z and Z. Forget about this. Let's go here. No. Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. You first have to learn how to travel through A, B's, and C's. Okay? And what it can do. All right? So, you're going to have to watch it again and again and again because it's so complicated. I gave you something so complicated that it's so easy. Okay? So easy. All right? It's so easy to understand your formations, how to use your body in the proper way. Hooah. Okay? Yes. Okay? Just the basics. That's the basics. Okay? You know how easy that is for general? Too easy. Too easy. All right? So, we all have to understand what's now on the test for Friday, right? Okay? So, get a little bit of configuration, how to use the inner spectrum and the outer spectrum. Use the inner spectrum first. Know exactly what you want to do. Are using from, you go from your foundation lines of your 12, which is graph communication lines to your chakra systems. You can go from 0 frame, 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, but you got to be careful. Once you get out of 10 frame, you got to change the dark web frame, right? So you don't want to overline signals in high position locations. You want to balance it out and bring it in all line communication setting where you come into multiplications or adding, subtracting locations that you're always in 100% location of setting. That's where the multiplication comes in communication lines, all communication lines of maps, not math. Maps equation line communications, and it puts all lines of all communication in position location binary transistor resistors and puts you in all communication setting to balance. Hoo-ah. Okay? Whoop, whoop. Adios.